But I honestly believe every single woman is in a constant journey of becoming, not to become more of something, but to actually becoming more of herself, to actually become more aware of who she is.
Welcome back. Today, we have a very special guest. It's Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. She is a physician, best-selling author, and a renowned expert on rest. She helps people recover from burnout and embrace a healthier, more balanced life. Today, we're going to talk about rest. We're also going to talk about belonging. We're also going to talk about this concept of being fully known and becoming the women that we truly are. This is a great one. Okay, without further ado, here's my friend, Dr. Saundra. So here's what I think. I think we are all super exhausted, even when we're getting enough sleep. What's going on?
You know what? I feel like for a lot of us, it definitely isn't just about sleep. I have spent so much time talking about rest and the 7 types of rest, but I really just feel like that is the reason so many of us are so tired. We are so focused on one aspect of rest and not really looking at it from a holistic standpoint
Mm-hmm.
and all the different ways that we can be fatigued. So I'm always asking people, don't, or telling people sometimes, don't just tell me you're tired. Tell me what kind of tired you are.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, let's go back. Let's talk about rest for a little bit. I have so much I want to talk to you about. Now, your last book, Sacred Rest, is a tremendous book, huge success, life-changing for so many women. As an author, I always like to say, there is something going on in this woman's life to write a book on this topic. So for you, what was going on in your life that made you write that book?
I was burned out. And, it was one of those situations where when I realized that I was burned out, I didn't really know what that even meant. And I
Mm-hmm.
certainly didn't have any idea of how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Long time ago, when I first started this journey with really being burned out, that wasn't even something that medical society even saw as a thing.
Or it was just work related.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, "Oh, you're burned out." Well, what does that mean? There's, like, no guidelines for it. I mean, it's just been within the past 7 or 8 years that even the World Health Organization even named it as a diagnosis. So,
Yeah.
it was one of those things where I was calling myself that, but I didn't even know what it meant. And for me, it really just meant that I'd gotten disconnected from the reason I do any of the things I do. It's like I was showing up, I was getting it done, I was producing, but there was definitely no joy, no satisfaction, and sometimes, honestly, no purpose. It was just,
Yeah.
"This is what I do, let me go do it."
Can you go through just really quickly for those who are unfamiliar, the types of rest with an
Yeah.
example of how we could increase in one way?
Yeah, so the 7 types include physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social, sensory, and creative. Physical being just like it sounds, but I divide it up into passive being sleeping and napping, and then active having things like a leisure walk or getting a massage or stretching. Mental being able to clear your mind and and if you have a mental rest deficit, you probably have had those times when you can't sleep because your brain's thinking all the thoughts, or maybe you felt a little kind of bit of mommy fog and it's like,
Mhm.
I have mummy brain syndrome. I can't remember anything. Or you feel like you have early dementia, but everything's normal. Those are all signs of a mental rest deficit. Lots of different ways to kind of process through that. Some people do it with meditation and mindfulness practices. Other people actually can experience better mental rest when they're doing a physical activity. So, like if you've
I
ever felt like
definitely
jogging,
like to, yeah, well, I like to work with my hands or do some sort of workout, something because I'm always in my head working all the time. So I need to relax with my body.
and that's a lot of people. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes when you think of rest as just stopping, you're like, well, how can I be resting if I am cycling or if I'm doing this other thing? How is that mentally resting? Well, you're not physically resting. Your physical body's doing something, but some activities are so kind of robotic or rhythmic in a way that allows your brain to kind of get to a quiet place. And we
Mm.
have to recognize that when we have slipped over into kind of decision fatigue and busy brain syndrome so that we can kind of make sure we're getting the mental rest that we need. And then there's spiritual. Spiritual rest is reconnecting. I call it that's true abiding, the abiding that most people don't get. So we sometimes spend a lot of time in the Word of God or at church or doing scriptural type things, but we don't have a time when we are just in relationship and we are reevaluating how well am I connected to the vine and
Mm.
what might need to happen for that to occur. Emotional rest is looking at our emotions and how easily we are able to express them and to describe them and process through them. and recognizing that a lot of us carry quite a bit of emotional labor and that we may not think we're people pleasers, but we kind of conform to what's going on around us so that we fit into those particular situations. For example, if you're in customer service, you might find yourself smiling when someone's yelling at you because, well, that's how you do good customer service, right? You just kind of keep it in and the customer's always first. Well, there's an emotional stress related to that. There's a level of inauthenticity with your emotions because you're not actually expressing how you feel. You're
Mhm.
controlling them to show up in a professional way. And so there's an emotional stress that occurs with a lot of people because that's how we function. As a physician, this was the area that I burned out in. Social rest is the next one. Social rest really requires that we then evaluate the people in our lives and how
Mhm.
well we connect with them and whether or not those relationships have gotten off balance and make the adjustments there. Sensory is looking at all the light, sound, smells, and all the things around us and making sure we are creating spaces where we can have sensory reprieves. Turning off the worship music sometimes because you need silence,
Yeah.
or making sure that you are set, dimming the lights before you go to bed, or different things to kind of downgrade some of the sensory inputs. And then finally is creative rest, which a lot of us are creatives, whether we think we are or not. But problem solving is a creative process. So anytime you are thinking outside of the box, I know you do a lot of coaching. If you're a coach, you're looking at other people's pieces and giving them a solution. That's a creative process. And so people sometimes think, well, if I'm not an author or a speaker or, a writer or whatever it is, a artist or musician, I'm not a creative. Well, every time moms have to come up with problem solving within their homes, they're being creative. So
Yep.
we use a lot of creative energy, and we have to have times when we are appreciating beauty and allowing beauty to unlock creativity inside of us.
I love that. I think it's brilliant how you've identified all of these different types of rest. And I think it's so important for us to look for these little moments, these spaces in our lives to be able to have rest. Your work, you don't know this, your work on rest was one of the things that I took inspiration from as I was building my new app. I have this app called Uplift for women to help women just take a breather during the day and get some emotional rest, whether it's doing breath work or meditation or prayer or scripture, because we can really change how we're doing in a day from all of the chaos and all of the stress we're doing, even if it's just 5-minute breaks throughout the day. Because I used to think, well, if I can't take a week vacation, what's the point? I'm just going to go, go, go. And I realized I'm kind of running myself into the ground. So, what I wonder for you as you were researching all of this, what surprised you the most? Like, what type of rest did you go, oh, I never thought about this. I never knew the research was there. I'm blown away personally as the author, as the woman that's researching this.
Yeah, the one that hit me, I think, the most was creative.
Mm.
And I think because it's something most of us don't really think about how we can be depleted creatively. But, I've been writing for a while now and I do a lot of other different things. And I had never really seen most of those things as creative processes. I mean, I write about science and I write about scripture. I feel like they're kind of static. And so I've never really thought about it as a creative process. So when I started realizing that a big part of my personal burnout was emotional and then creative rest deficits, part of the research that shocked me was looking at how many people were talking about how they feel better around like bodies of water. So
Yes.
many people say, "I feel so great when I go to the beach and it just clears my mind and I just feel like, I come alive and I can think about all these things I wanna do and all these dreams." But nobody was really, like, connecting that with a restorative process. They were experiencing the restoration and the renewal, but there was a disconnect between how it could play out in the day-to-day of their lives. And one of the best studies that I saw, they looked at the MRI of the brain after someone who said that had looked at the actual ocean, picture of the ocean, and colors that resembled the ocean. And the brain had the same activity in that part of the brain that sparks with creativity. They had the same activity in all three instances, no activity when they looked at like a beautiful field of flowers or, some of these
Really?
mountains or some of these other things that are inspirational to other people. And what it helped me to see is that I don't have to go to these creative element areas. I just have to remember them. I have to have
Wow.
something that sparks the memory of what inspires me and brings me restoration.
Okay, I'm blown away by that. And it's so true for me. And instinctively, I had so many pictures of water, the beach, rivers, lakes, the ocean, surf in the app that women can look at while they're doing breath work or something else. And it just makes sense that there is something so restorative about that. And I love that science backs up what we've been feeling, but we haven't necessarily been naming. So, for your burnout, you said it was primarily emotional and creative. What are the things that you did that helped you most?
For myself, I really took a deep dive into the need for like sabbaticals because I realized that I needed to have a complete new relationship with rest and restoration because I saw it as like this lesser thing than work. And so now I incorporate it kind of within my day to day. But in the very beginning, I started carving out these like little blocks. It began with just honoring Sabbath. And so the
Mhm.
sabbatical was like a weekend, not necessarily like extended periods of time, but breaking away to do the types of rest that I needed and not have anything else on the agenda. So the work was rest. So I might go to the beach with no other agenda than I'm going to sit here and watch waves and let the waves inspire me, or I'm going to have a time away with a girlfriend. Sometimes I'd invite them to the beach. And so I would be getting some, I'd have somebody there I could share emotionally with and have conversation and kind of build up those kind of things. Now, what I'm seeing a lot more of is that I have to incorporate rest kind of within the middle of my busy day. The sabbaticals were great, but they were not sustainable for the long haul. It's like I
Mhm.
can't just go on a sabbatical every time I need a break. I needed to figure out how do I bring these creative elements into my day-to-day life. So now it looks like some of the things you mentioned, having screensavers that show me the ocean and the beach and all of these different things, or I have a nautical wall in my home and just kind of have that I can look at. Or even having, like for myself, for the emotional rest part of it, having a girl chat group where whenever I need to have a moment to be able to connect with someone, I can quickly say, "Hey, who's free for a, 20-minute chat so we can just discuss our days?" And so I'm their emotional rest, they're my emotional rest. I have a connection with someone who can be that for me.
What do you think some of the biggest hurdles are just in our mindset to
It's a
accepting
stretching
that in our
process.
bones? Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part, and it's the hardest part for me, and I find it for a lot of women. It's a stretching process. There's a large amount of us who don't really want the discomfort of becoming. I sometimes
Yeah.
just, encourage women to stay in the tension of becoming, because you're not becoming something different, you're actually becoming more aware of who you are. And so there's a tension there because there's a divide between what you know and what you're uncovering. And so that tension feels very uncomfortable, and we sometimes want to withdraw back from it. And then on top of that, when other people see you in that tension, especially if they, because you're changing to yourself, you can only imagine what somebody on the outside looking at is thinking.
Yeah.
They then have their own interpretation of it, and I found that there's a lot of kind of self-protective attacks that people will do because of their fear of what they're seeing. The
Mhm.
loss attack where the person maybe can't voice it, but they're afraid they're gonna lose some aspect of their relationship with you as you become more of whatever God is kind of developing in your life. There's sometimes a safety attack where someone will say, "Well, that doesn't seem safe," or, "Maybe you should slow down." But they're not saying it necessarily out of the purest of reasons. They have kind of this ulterior motive of, "I'm afraid because when you change, then it's going to change something for me too." And
Mhm.
so there's so many different layers of how this interplays. But I love that God gives us grace for the navigation of it. But it does require some real intentional times of abiding.
I see this with business owners all the time, especially with women who feel called to start a business. Like, say they're leaving corporate jobs and they're going to start a business on their own, or maybe God has put this idea for a book in their hearts. They will often say to people around them, "Do you see this for me?" And it's normally one of two answers. One, because people love them, they go, "Yeah, it's perfect. You're going to be amazing." So you could be like, "Should I start a business or write a book about painting elephant toenails?" And they'll be like, "Yes, that is so financially viable. Go for it." And they mean it because they love you. But I think most people go, "Ooh, I can't really see you doing that. I mean, this is what you do." And it's to some degree because we get placed in a box, right?
Mhm.
But it's also because they didn't get that calling. They didn't get that vision. Of course, these people can't understand this idea you have for a book or this idea to start a new business or take a big change or change your life because they didn't get the vision. So we're looking at others as a mirror to if we should do something, if we should become something new or go through a season of change in our life. And then when we don't get the response we want to get, we go, oh, I guess this means it isn't for me. But they never got that vision in the first place. Nothing bad on them, but it's not their vision, it's yours. I'm sure you've seen this with so many women that you've worked with.
Oh, absolutely. That's actually an entire section of the book because that is huge for a lot of people. And one of the things that comes to mind when someone I hear people say that often, and they say it, others say it about you, and sometimes we say it about ourselves. I don't see myself as a whatever the thing is. God,
Yeah.
you feel like God is calling you to. I don't see myself as a business owner or a writer or a speaker or whatever entrepreneur. And the thing I think we have to kind of realize is that you don't have to see yourself necessarily as it. You have to decide if you can believe what God said. And I think that's the harder part of it. I think sometimes when for other people because they didn't hear him say it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're hearing it kind of secondhand. The other flip side of that I hear people say is what will people think? Because if you have always been something maybe in corporate, and now you decide you want to write that book on elephant toenails. It's like, what will people think when I switch over to this different thing? Are they going to think I'm scatterbrained or stupid? And we get into that aspect of it. And really what we're asking is, do I have permission to explore my likes, my desires, my wants, what God's placed inside of me? We're asking for other people's permission to be free to explore who we are, our own identity and our own, you know, purposes and and callings. And I think we don't sometimes realize that we don't have to ask permission for someone else before we step into what we feel like God is asking us to do.
Oh, so good. So, do you feel like there's some very common signs that a woman is getting ready for a change or to get on a becoming journey? And what are those early signs? So, if someone's listening, should go, well, what do you know? That is me.
Yeah, I think there's lots of signs. In the book Being Fully Known, I have every chapter has what we call unveiling questions
Yeah.
because I think it's really important to start asking some specific questions of yourself to be able to kind of walk through the process. But I honestly believe every single woman is in a constant journey of becoming, not to
Amen.
become more of something, but actually becoming more of herself, to actually become more aware of who she is. And so everything from, when if you're someone who has kids, from the moment you first have kids, every single season of their life is a different level of becoming because there's a loss. There's, you send your kids off to kindergarten for the first time, they wave by. You feel that little bit of, ooh, they don't need me so much. Same
Mhm.
when they go off to high school and they're driving on their own and they leave the house for college. There's these constant pivot points of becoming. For the woman who's not a parent, maybe you felt that you start one career and then all of a sudden that doesn't satisfy you anymore
Yeah.
and you see this other thing that you're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that." It's an invitation to actually explore and to become more aware of what it is you wanna do and how you wanna show up into the world. So I think we have to kinda keep our hands and kind of open to the becoming process so that we're allowing ourselves to be on a continuous journey. And if we don't become afraid of the change, if we actually stay open to the different levels of identity that we can kind of walk into and explore, it keeps us in a place of excitement about life because you realize that there is a glory to glory, even in your own experiences with how you show up in the world.
Amen. I think for some reason we have this idea of the big things that God is going to do with us, how God is going to unveil who we are and what He wants for our lives. Like that's going to happen in our 20s. And then we're just, well, this is who I am. And for a lot of people, they do stop developing mid 20s, really, unless something big outside of them shapes them. But God has new adventures for us. He has new things for us to discover about ourselves. He has new wisdom and gifts to give us all the time. And the idea that, oh, we figure ourselves out in college or we figure ourselves out in our 20s is crazy.
Think too often we look at life as if it has this ultimate, as you mentioned, like this ultimate climax.
Yeah.
Like you're climbing this mountain, you reach the apex, and bam, you have made it. And it's like, if you think that way in your 20s and you're rushing to get to the climax by 30, then it's like, now what? I look at life more as it's like a mountain range, not a mountain. And so you have these moments of climax, and then you have these moments of with pulling back, some
Mhm.
restful moments where things pull back a little bit and you get a chance to kind of look around and see what mountain do I want to climb next. And that next mountain can look completely different. It might have completely different kind of layout and terrain and things that you're going to learn about yourself and about God. And then you have another pullback moment. And I think if we stop fearing the pullback moments and stop thinking that we are lesser because we're in the pullback moment, that our lives are not being as effective in the pullback moment, if we start seeing those pullbacks as actually opportunities for you to enjoy the mountain you just transpired over and a space to regroup before you go up the next one. It's not a punishment, it's actually a reward for having done well the first time.
That's
I think
good.
sometimes we see the valley as, oh, the valley. The valley is this horrible thing you want to stay out of. But for those who feel like they're kind of in an ebb and flow within their work life and they can see fruit from this thing, but then all of a sudden it's like I'm in a season of fruitlessness. It doesn't seem like there's any fruit. Can I accept that season as a pullback season to allow me to appreciate the past season of fruit so that I don't feel like I have to reproduce it, but that I can now be open to receive the new assignment for the new mountain and the new fruit that can come from that mountain and not compare the two?
That's a good word. Everybody just rewind 30 seconds, a minute. Listen to that like 6 more times because that is a solid word, Dr. Saundra. I love it. You ready for some fun questions?
Sure.
Okay, what about your Enneagram number? Do you happen to know it?
It is a 3.
That is no surprise. You do a lot. What is your experience of being a 3?
Well, I know for myself, I am very goal driven. So
Mhm.
I like things and I like them a certain way and I push kind of towards that. I think for myself, it keeps me aware of the fact that if I don't put some parameters and some importance on rest and restorative practices, it is very easy for me to slip over into that control and workaholic and
Mm.
productivity only kind of mindset.
Yeah, it's such a great tool to just rein things in. As a 7, I'm constantly reminding myself I can't build anything new more than once a year because if you give me 5 minutes of daydream time before I get to anything restorative, I'm going to plan a new business. What about a song that you've had on repeat lately?
Let's see. I Trust God is one that I tend to play quite a bit.
I love that. Who is that?
I think it's from Elevation Worship. They have a version of it. I don't know if they wrote it, but
That's great. I Trust God from Elevation. Okay, I haven't heard that one. It's going on my list. I love it. What about a TV show or book?
I don't get as much TV as I probably could. The latest thing that I have seen recently was The Forge, which is a movie. Let's see, Priscilla is in it and some other people
Mhm.
are in it. I don't know if you've seen that one, but I was just really blown. That's the one that's kind of on my brain right now. I was just really blown
Really?
away by. Have you seen that one?
I haven't, no.
Oh, I was just blown away. It's really based around men being there for each other, and I just don't see too many
Mhm.
Christian movies, about that. I see a lot about couples, a lot about kind of women and prayer, but this one brought in like the old woman from War Room.
Yep.
You remember that movie? And so it brought her in and it had her kind of as the female prayer warrior, but then it brought in like an army of male prayer warriors, like this group of like 8 to 10 men. And I was just like, yes, God, that's that's why we need more books and movies and things depicting that.
Oh, I love that. That sounds great. What about a book that you've enjoyed lately?
Oh, let me think. I do a lot of like reading for work. So most of my books are like clinical books and stuff. So I'm trying to think of more that is not a clinical type book. The book that's on my brain right now is called Why We Sleep. So
Mm.
that's the one that
Oh,
I've been
Matthew
kind of
Walker.
yeah, so I've been kind of
Yes.
deep diving into that one, most recently. I held off on reading it primarily because a lot of my conversation is that sleep and rest are not the same thing, so I try to avoid talking about sleep and more about rest, but I was like, "You know what? I kinda wanna go deeper into this topic."
It's
So
a
that's the one that's
terrific
on my
book.
brain right now.
Yeah, that's a great book. Great recommendation. What about a product that you told someone they had to have?
This is completely, like, aside, it's a hair product. It was Wow, I think it's the name of the company. I
Mhm.
literally just bought it maybe, like, 3 weeks ago. I have very frizzy hair, and so I did my first rest and renew cruise, and we were going to the Bahamas, which is extraordinarily
Ooh,
humid, and a friend
yeah.
said, "Oh, you gotta buy this product. It's called Wow." Something you can use with the flat iron to be able to
Mhm.
keep it straighter for longer. And when I say this is a miracle product, I was like, "Girl, this is like I don't know who came up with this, but they need like a Nobel Peace Prize because my hair was so straight and it was so humidity resistant for so long. I was just like shocked. And you barely have to spray any of it on your hair before you flat iron. So it was bouncy and it was amazing. So yeah,
Okay. It's Wow. We will track it down and find the link. Just tell me what's the color of the bottle?
it's silver. I'll have to, I think the wow is what's written on it. I'm
We'll
sure it
find
probably
it.
has some company name.
That's great. This is so fun. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for talking about all of the great work that you've been doing in the world. Tell everyone where they can find you, where they can pick up a copy of the new book.
Yeah, so the newest book is titled Being Fully Known: The Joyful Satisfaction of Beholding, Becoming, and Belonging, and it's available in all the places, Amazon, Target, Barnes& and Nobles, all the places. My main website is I Choose My Best Life, and I have a podcast by the same name, and for anybody who is struggling with their rest, specifically if they don't know which of the 7 types of rest they need, we have a free assessment at restquiz.com.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
How great is she, right? I learn so much every time I talk to her. Now, I'm giving away copies of her book. All you have to do is tag me and tag her while you are listening. Share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram. If you are watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Make sure that you have subscribed and you like it, and I'll be giving away copies on YouTube as well. And as always, I'm so grateful we get to spend this time together every week. Thank you for investing in you. Today, thank you for investing in your future rest and success, in that sense of self-worth and self-confidence that we can get when we do the work to become the women that God is calling us to become. It's not striving. It's not, I'm not good enough yet. It is kind of an unwrapping of a gift new all the time. And that's really exciting. But we can't unwrap that gift. We can't be open to new adventure if we are exhausted, if we're not taking care of ourselves. It is why I've told you so much about the app already. It's why I built it. So in the middle of a busy day, you can get a little bit of emotional rest. You can get some creative rest. You can rest your eyes. You can connect with God quickly, under 10 minutes. You can feel better. We have this great part where you can spin a wheel and you can see the wheel spin, and it will give you something that you can do quickly, easily, and for free that's going to put you in a better mood. It's super fun. It's great to do whether you need a mood boost or you need to de stress. It's here for you. I built it because I believe in you. I believe that God has given you great gifts. I believe in your dreams, and I know you're making a difference in this world. That's why you're here week after week doing the work. God has uniquely created you to stand strong and bring something special to this world that only you can bring. So I'm here to remind you you're stronger than you think, you're smarter than you give yourself credit for, and you're braver than you feel in the hard moments. And the best part? You're just getting started. You are capable of incredible things because the Spirit of God lives in you. The dreams that are in your heart, they're not there by accident. God placed them there, and He's giving you everything you need to live them out. It is my joy to get to coach you and equip you every week, hopefully twice a week. I love to remind you that with God, you have what it takes. So keep stepping up, keep showing up and loving well, because you know the truth. You can't break a woman who gets her strength from God. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Do I look yellow? I feel like I look super yellow. Can we fix this? I look yellow on screen. It's so strange. Maybe here. Less yellow. A little too bright. Okay, that's better.